Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. When Qin Mu brought the chest and Jiang Miao into the canyon, he saw the light flowing from the huge runes on both sides of the cliff. The next instant, all the sand in the entire canyon flew up as though a sandstorm was raising. Don't breathe, Qin Mu shouted out. Seal up all your pores. Jiang Miao instantly understood what was happening and held his breath while sealing up all of his pores. The sand in the canyon wasn't just yellow sand, but spirit weapons, and any grain of sand could expand anytime to become a huge sandstone the size of dozens of fields. If they breathed in numerous grains of sand into their nasal cavity, throat, or lungs, the result would not be pretty. If a few grains of sand entered their pores and expanded outwards, it would also be extremely terrible for them. The instant before the violent sand reached them, Qin Mu poured vital qi into his sword pellet and it instantly expanded. Flying swords flowed like water and transformed into a perfect metal sphere, hiding them within. Even the most exquisite sword skills would find it difficult to defend against the bombardment of the violent sand. He couldn't ensure that he would be able to block every grain of sand, so he might as well use his sword pellet to form the most perfect sphere to protect him. In Li City, he had already forged his flying swords into flowing water. Like mute sword pellets, it could transform into any form he wanted. For having refined a weapon to such a step, his forging method could be considered god level. The moment Qin Mu hid inside the sword pellet, the violent sand arrived, and in an instant, small dents marred the sphere where numerous grains of sand had hit. The materials that Cai Yunxiang had given Qin Mu to forge his swords were of the highest quality. He might have been resentful about the resulting swords being too heavy earlier, which resulted in it being hard to execute, but now he was thankful that Cai Yunxiang had given him the best materials. It was the main reason why his sword pellet didn't shatter from the initial impact. Even so, the sword pellet was blown away and crashed around the canyon at a terrifying speed, bouncing here and there. Qin Mu and Jiang Miao's body shook violently inside, and they were in so much discomfort that they almost vomited blood. Even though they could avoid the flying sand in the sword pellet, the vibrations from collision almost tore them apart. Qin Mu used all he could to execute flowing water characteristic of the sword pellet to its limit. Every time a dent appeared, it would repair itself automatically. However, Qin Mu's vital qi would usually be shattered into pieces by the flying sand, so it was hard for him to execute the sword pellet. This resulted in more and more dents. This killing formation is even more terrifying than what I imagined. Despair filled Qin Mu's heart. When they had stepped into the canyon, Xing'an had followed right after. He had stretched his hand to grab the sword pellet when violent sand suddenly flew toward him. Xing'an's expression changed slightly, and his fingers trembled. His divine art burst forth to blow the sand back. There's something wrong about this sand. Wait, their spirit weapons are not really sand. My corporeal body is the body of a true god, so why should I be afraid of mere sand? He immediately saw the clues and speculated the correct answer. Since he had already entered the god realm, he had rushed into the canyon to chase after Qin Mu's sword pellet. His abilities were much stronger than in the past, yet even so, it was still extremely difficult for him to advance through the valley. Every step was a challenge. Yellow sand flew everywhere, covering the land. It assaulted him from all directions. Xing'an's hands moved, and all kinds of divine arts came bursting forth to block the flying sand. Even though there were grains that he couldn't block, they could only cause pain to his corporeal body and not hurt him. Suddenly, he felt his feet becoming heavier and heavier. Noticing that some sand had fallen into his shoes, Xing'an stopped. He raised his feet to shake out the sand, but more and more sand landed on his body. The grains actually seemed to come alive and flow up his body. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead, and he used his strength to shake off the yellow sand off himself. In the meantime, loud explosions rang out non-stop as Qin Mu's sword pellet got smashed around like a shooting star. It was filled with dents and seemed like it would shatter at any moment. Soon, Xing'an's leg sank into the yellow sand, and he found it even harder to break free. Yet Qin Mu's sword pellet was also crooked from the bombardment, making it hard for him to continue. If the brat wants to die, I don't have to die with him. I shall leave this place first. Human king creation technique. Xing'an gave a low shout, and his body suddenly shrunk into a speck of dust. Like this, he planned to escape the ill fate of being buried alive in the sand. His creation technique was from Pan Gongso, who had cultivated great educational heavenly devil scriptures before. Xing'an's attainments in it far surpassed those of Pan Gongso, and even those of Qin Mu, the heavenly devil cult master. The moment he shrunk his body, the grains of sand expanded rapidly, and Xing'an's expression went blank. He saw countless huge stones come flying toward him like planets. Big and small were relative terms. He had shrunk countless times, and so the sand had expanded countless times. The grains of sand became huge planets to crush him. He felt like he'd fallen into a vast galaxy which was incomparably terrifying and chaotic. This is a killing formation for true gods. This kind of transformation changed star sand into constellations, shifting the formation according to how I change. Xing'an gave a dull grunt when he was caught between two planet-sized star grains of sand. He almost coughed up blood. After the two planet-sized star grains of sand crashed into him, they separated, and another two grains came. They crashed into Xing'an, who didn't have the time to avoid. Boom, boom, boom. The collisions rang with loud noise, and Xing'an's face turned pale. He finally couldn't hold back vomiting a mouthful of god blood. The star sand grains weren't actually stars but spirit weapons the size of dozens of fields. The force of the collisions wasn't too terrifying, but the speed at which they happened was simply astonishing. A series of them had severely injured Xing'an. He shouted and used all his energy to execute his divine art, blowing away the star sand. He suddenly roared, and water flooded from behind him like a huge river and lifted his body up. The river danced in the air and traveled rapidly between the star sand, avoiding the planets by a hairbreadth. Xing'an let out a sigh of relief, but at that moment, the grains of star sand became incomparably bright and burst forth with starlight. In the sky, the beams connected, and the tens of thousands of star sand grains combined to form an incomparably strange eye. Crap! Just as Xing'an thought that, a beam of light shot out from that evil eye formed by the countless stars and struck his body. The long river under his feet crumbled, and he fell back while vomiting blood. The power of the sand wasn't too great, but when the grains combined, they were extremely terrifying and had the ability to hurt him. And in the vast galaxy, countless star sand grains gathered and turned into eyes floating in the sky. Beams of starlight shot to and fro, attacking him from all directions. Those beams were starlight sword chi, which was incomparably sharp. Even if Xing'an's body was the corporeal body of a true god, it was still difficult for him to defend himself. I was lured into the formation, and now I can no longer leave it. Despair filled Xing'an's heart, and he hurriedly looked toward Qin Mu. The youth was also facing a similar situation. One sword pellet had broken open. However, Qin Mu was using phantom illusion technique to transform into a shadow to avoid the strikes of the star sand and keep himself alive for the moment. As for the chest and the little dragon, he must have placed them into his Daotai sack. With all the star sand combining into star sand evil eyes, starlight sword chi encircled both of them. Xing'an tried his best to avoid the beams of light while thinking, it's not a loss to have this brat die with me. Wait, that's not right. I have just become a god, so to die along with this brat would be a huge loss. On the other side, Qin Mu suddenly froze. He raised his head to look at a star sand evil eye and stayed still as if he had accepted his fate. He waited quietly for his end. Xing'an had strong cultivation, and his corporeal body was incomparably strong, so he could still endure. As long as he could find the transformation in algebra inside the star sand killing formation, he would have a chance to escape. Right then, Qin Mu's corporeal body suddenly returned back to normal. When he raised his hand to do a mudra, a huge star formation of great overarching heavenly stars lined up and collided with the starlight sword chi that was shooting at him. A strange thing happened then. The constellation of great overarching heavenly stars was lit up by the starlight sword chi, the stars that formed it becoming incomparably bright. With a hum, a thick beam of light shot out and shattered one of the star sand evil eyes. Xing'an was stunned. He had recognized Qin Mu's mudra. It was what Li Qianqing had executed against him, and it was called Great Overarching Heavenly Stars Palm Force. In the end though, Li Qianqing had still died in the hands of Xing'an. Yet one couldn't deny that what he used was an extremely powerful divine art. However, Li Qianqing's cultivation had been lacking, which made it so he was not a match for Xing'an. Yet Qin Mu had now used the same divine art to block the starlight sword chi of the Star Sand Evil Eye. It was truly strange. In the distance, Qin Mu executed Great Overarching Heavenly Stars Force Field and struck out with Great Overarching Heavenly Stars Palm Force, crushing Star Sand Evil Eyes one by one. He walked toward the depths of the canyon as though he was out for a walk. Xing'an looked at him vanishing up ahead, then also tried to execute Great Overarching Heavenly Stars Palm Force, but he had only learned the creation techniques of great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures and not the complete thing. How could that brat solve this formation that can kill even gods? Doubt arose in his heart. After a long time, Qin Mu walked out of the canyon that was 10 miles long, leaving the yellow sand behind himself. He then released Jiao Miao and the chest from his Dao Tai sack. Jiang Miao turned his head back and saw Star Sand Evil Eye flying to and fro. Starlight Sword Chi flashed around them, and his heart shook from astonishment. He wondered how Qin Mu had walked out of that. Qin Mu examined his surroundings silently and saw yellow sand still flowing continuously in the sky. He walked forward some more, and saw the source of it. There was a huge cauldron filled with the sand. The 10 miles of life-threatening danger originated from it. Behind it though, there was a majestic palace with vermilion walls and glazed tiles with dragons and phoenixes carved on them. It looked extraordinary and sacred. On the eaves, there were 10 sculptures of divine beasts sitting, while at the front there was a person riding a crane. Strangely though, chains stretched out from the palace into all directions, going deep into the cliffs of the canyon. The chains rattled from time to time despite looking very heavy. Jiang Miao became excited and said in a low voice, "I can hear the call of the divine dragon. His voice is coming from here. I can hear it even more clearly now." Qin Mu couldn't hear that voice, probably because he wasn't a dragon. Only those with the bloodline could hear the call. "Don't just go there," Qin Mu told him and walked toward the chains. He examined one carefully and raised his hand to brush it gently. Instantly, gorgeous rune markings lit up, and small sparks floated in the air where they scattered with the wind. He went to the side of the cliff and examined the runes there. They were god writings, yet the 10 miles of yellow sand was a devil formation used to refine a true god to death. What was even stranger was that the devil formation had been powered by god writings, and the usage of both of them was extremely exquisite. To act straightforwardly, to be free from nature, that's the meaning of path. That's why no matter if it's God or devil, why is it my business? Qin Mu's expression was unmoved, and he said, "Jiang Miao, this is the teaching of Heavenly Saint cult. Stretch your hand out." Jiang Miao did as told, and Qin Mu used cinnabar to draw a rune on his palm that was almost the same as the god writing on the wall. Let's go in." Jiang Miao didn't understand what he had done, but hurriedly entered the palace anyway. In the hall, the divine dragon was heavily chained. The chains went right through his body to keep him locked in place. The divine dragon was incomparably tall, sturdy, and sacred-looking. His dragon chi and dragon aura would make people look up at him in awe. The divine dragon opened his eyes and looked at Qin Mu and Jiang Miao. He then suddenly opened his mouth to say in a rumbling voice, "My clansmen, you have finally arrived. Cult Master, let's quickly rescue this senior divine dragon." Jiang Miao said swiftly. Qin Mu shook his head. His gaze focused on the chained giant dragon and he said in a gentle voice, "This senior divine dragon, there's something I can't figure out. Why were you chained here by the founding master of my Heavenly Saint cult?" The divine dragon was slightly stunned, and his pupils contracted continuously. He focused his gaze on Qin Mu. His eyes were very huge, and if Qin Mu came to his face and stood under his eyelid, he wouldn't be able to reach its top even with his hands stretched up high. It wasn't comfortable being stared at by the pair of dragon's eyes. They held all that made people shudder without feeling cold and aroused respect and fear in the heart. Qin Mu seemed to not feel anything though and slowly walked forward. He examined the decorations in the hall, noting numerous murals, but most of them had been destroyed. Dragons like to show off their achievements and usually carve their deeds into murals, decorating their palaces to be sumptuous and shining brilliantly in gold. In addition, numerous murals described their glorious achievements. It was truly pleasant for them emotionally and physically to live inside such places. Not to mention the destroyed murals, even the treasures in the palace were all pillaged. Any incense burner or screen, any jade couch, teapot, book, painting, chess box, or zither were all moved away. Qin Mu even saw the holes where luminous pearls had once been, and not only that, there were also numerous tiles missing from the floor. From their position, they had all been at the center of the hall. There should have been a beautiful picture there which represented the owner's wealth and status. They had been taken away though and revealed the stones below. It was very painful to look at such a sight. The stones, however, all had runes written all over them. Qin Mu examined them in detail, but didn't touch. "So the person who tricked me is your patriarch?" the divine dragon asked with a hint of anger in his voice. "It's not my founding master, he's my big senior brother." Qin Mu searched around carefully, looking for a treasure or two that founding master might have left behind carelessly, but the cleanliness of the place left him helpless. Clearly, if his big senior brother had gone to open a bathhouse in eternal peace, his business would have boomed. The palace had been scrubbed so clean by founding master, that there wasn't a single thing left worthy of being taken away. The only things left were founding master's cauldron with 10 miles of yellow sand and a huge palace, but that was impossible. The two treasures were used to suppress the divine dragon. I saw star sand gathering in star sand evil eyes in the 10 miles of yellow sand. The star arrangements and the connection between the starlight as well as the attributes and structure of the stars were the arrangements of the divine arts of my heavenly saint cult's great educational heavenly devil scriptures. Qin Mu searched for half a day but to no avail. At that time, he finally looked at the divine dragon and said, "Once I saw that, I came to a realization. I had learned 10 miles star sand calamity formation before, and it's hidden inside great educational heavenly devil scriptures. After comprehending that, even though the formation could kill a true god, it became quite simple for me, and I was able to walk out alive." He walked 2 rounds around the chained divine dragon while speaking. "However, I still didn't dare to be certain that the killing formation was left behind by big senior brother. So after I walked out of the star sand calamity formation, I went to check the god markings on the wall and the devil writings on the chains." Jiang Miao followed his footsteps and walked 2 rounds around the divine dragon. He pondered over it and said, "So the words you said just now weren't targeted at me nor were they your comprehension. The sentence was what I saw in the god and devil writings that big senior brother left behind, and I was talking about the cultivation of his frame of mind." Qin Mu turned and sat in front of the divine dragon. He stopped in his footsteps and explained to him, "My big senior brother is the founding master of Heavenly Saint cult, and the cultivation of his frame of mind has reached very high attainments. Heavenly Saint cult has the saying that one has to do 3 things to become saint: found a cult, gain merit, and put their ideas in writing. Big senior brother established a cult and put his ideas in writing, but he hadn't gained merit, so he couldn't be a saint and cultivate to the realm of Saint Woodcutter. Yet among all the cult masters, other than him, no one could achieve even 2 things of the 3, so it could only be him that suppressed the divine dragon. The other cult masters couldn't have done it." Jiang Miao also stopped walking and looked at him with puzzlement. "In that case, why did your big senior brother want to suppress the divine dragon? We will have to ask senior divine dragon about that." Qin Mu raised his head and looked up at the huge divine dragon. Even when he was chained up and all his divine arts and transformation were restricted, his huge body was enough to make them look up. Its whiskers hung down like clouds tinged with sunset hues floating around them. There was no way anyone could see any evil in such an extraordinary and martial existence. Qin Mu raised his head to ask, "Big senior brother probably chained you here to gain merit to become a saint. In that case, what evil have you done for him to have to trap you here? Senior, please enlighten me." The divine dragon looked at him with a cold gaze, then suddenly grinned, revealing razor-sharp teeth. "Such a clever child, so why do you wish to die? You are so smart, so why don't you know that you should act blind? Sometimes you can live longer only when you don't speak the truth and pretend to be dumb." Jiang Miao shuddered and raised his head. In that case, what's the motive behind Senior calling me? The divine dragon's body twisted, and his neck swept in a peculiar arc. The chains were pulled taut by him, but he looked into Jiang Miao's eyes. His long whiskers almost touched Qin Mu and Jiao Miao, but with the restraint of the chains, they were just out of reach. When Qin Mu had brought Jiang Miao to walk around the divine dragon, he had calculated the length of the chains, and his calculations were incomparably marvelous. They were just out of the giant creature's attack range. The breath coming out from the divine dragon's mouth creased the skin on their faces when he spoke. Of course I summoned you to save me, son of surging river dragon king. Jiang Miao was stunned. You recognize me? Of course I do. The divine dragon stretched his body, trying to leave his coiled around himself position. However, with the chains penetrating his body, he couldn't stretch himself, but even, he had managed to shake the palace. Come to think of it, you're my nephew. When you were just born, I even carried you, and you peed all over me. I even gave a flick on your little pee-pee. Jiang Miao's face flushed, and he turned back to look at Qin Mu with a troubled expression. Cult Master, don't tell anyone about this, he said in a low voice. Qin Mu smiled at him. So what about it? I also got my little pee-pee flicked by Grandpa Blind and Grandpa Cripple when I was little. This is an act of love from the seniors. Also, before your intelligence awakened, you licked my face when I was sleeping and covered it in saliva. Jiang Miao's face turned red like a cloth that was just dyed. He muttered, can we not talk about this anymore? All right, but when you met me for the first time, you even pounced at me and rubbed my face before hanging yourself by the tail on my ear while crying "Maha." Jiang Miao didn't want anything more than to find a hole to hide himself inside. With shame in his voice, he said, Cult Master, can we never mention that again? Qin Mu laughed loudly. After you become famous in the future, a divine dragon of an era, I will definitely tell your sons and descendants about this. I was also thinking, junior brother Qin Yu is still waiting for your return. After we come back, how are you going to face him? Are you still going to cling to his body? Jiang Miao was stunned. The divine dragon was suddenly angered and asked in a sinister voice, have you guys finished talking? Qin Mu walked a step back and said with a smile, your uncle is furious, so let's not talk drivel but focus on the important matters at hand. This is your family matters though, so I shall just listen on the side. The chest of the divine dragon heaved up and down. After a moment, he composed himself and said solemnly, Jiang Miao, the brat with you is the junior brother of an evil man. He ain't a good thing, and you need to stay farther away from him. You are my nephew and I'm your uncle, so you should help me break free. Jiang Miao hesitated. He looked at him back at Qin Mu with a troubled expression. You could hear my call, so you should know our bloodlines are close. Do you not trust me? Raise your hand, when our palms touch, you should know how closely related we are, the divine dragon said in a gentle voice. Jiang Miao raised his palm, and the divine dragon also raised his huge claw with a hint of excitement in his eyes. The instant before the palm and claw touched, the strange rune Qin Mu had left behind on Jiang Miao's palms suddenly shone with dazzling light. It instantly activated the hidden devil markings on the chains, and they shone brightly. The devil fire boiled and tunneled into the divine dragon, making him tremble violently from the burning sensation. His body distorted from the pain, and his roars rang out endlessly, shaking the hall. Jiang Miao hurriedly pulled back his hand and looked at Qin Mu. The youth smiled and walked over. He said leisurely, Jiang Miao, your mother is Surging River Dragon King, and she died to protect you. There are countless Dragon Kings in the East Sea of Great Ruins worshipped in the Dragon King temples. This happened because they had no choice and were forced by the situation to petrify themselves. 20,000 years ago, when Founding Emperor era came to an end and the disasters struck heaven and earth, the gods and devils of Founding Emperor Celestial Heavens either headed to Carefree Village or chose to petrify themselves. So why didn't your uncle choose to petrify himself or head to Carefree Village? Don't you find it weird? Jiang Miao was stunned. Qin Mu continued to speak. Over here, Parameter Arc that was headed for Carefree Village suffered an assault. It was ambushed and destroyed by the enemy before getting sealed. However, there were still descendants of Heavenly Works God race in Parameter Arc. To prevent them from breaking the seal and walking out, the enemy needed a strong practitioner to stay guard. And this guard, could it be your uncle? Jiang Miao looked at the divine dragon. The expression of huge creature changed slightly, and he said coldly, "You'd rather believe an outsider and not your own uncle." Qin Mu walked forward and looked up at the divine dragon. He suddenly said, "Jiang Miao, I've seen you a long time ago in Surging River Dragon Palace. The soul of your mother was floating around you and singing a sorrowful song in the dragon language. You were frozen by the mysterious ice, and there was a broken sword stabbed into your chest. The broken sword had pierced through your heart, and your mother had used her life to protect you, keeping you alive in anticipation that someone would revive you one day." Jiang Miao shed tears. After he was revived, he had gone to Surging River Dragon Palace with Qin Mu before and seen the skeleton of his mother. Your mother, Surging River Dragon King, was extremely powerful, so how could she die? Qin Mu's face was calm when he continued speaking. Why did you not die even when a sword pierced your chest? Could the person that injured you have not killed you on purpose? Could their motive have been to make use of your injury to make your mother exhaust her dragon bead to extend your life? As a result, her cultivation fell drastically, making it easy to kill her. In that case, wouldn't it take a very close person to be able to get close to her while she's protecting you? Jiang Miao's body trembled. Why didn't this uncle with remarkable abilities come to save you even when you were frozen for 20,000 years? Qin Mu asked. Where's that broken sword that had pierced your heart? I have always kept it. Jiang Miao opened his mouth and spat it out. Qin Mu's gaze landed on the broken sword that had pierced through Jiang Miao's heart. Dragon blood still stained it. Do you want to know the owner of this sword? He asked. Jiang Miao's face filled with fear, and he shook his head. Cult Master, my heart is very confused. Qin Mu raised his head and looked at the divine dragon. If this is your sword, you can execute it to kill us easily and even sever the chains. You sensed Jiang Miao's aura and kept calling him because of this sword too, right? Now this sword is here, Senior, please. The divine dragon narrowed his eyes and stared relentlessly at him. Qin Mu smiled. Suddenly, light flowed through that broken sword, and it rose into the sky with a roar. At the same time, the devil light on the chain shone brightly, and devil fire poured into the body of the divine dragon, burning him until he couldn't stop twitching. The magic power he had just gathered was broken once again. Clank! The broken sword landed on the ground. Qin Mu walked up and picked up the broken sword with a sigh. Jiang Miao, your mother died unjustly. Jiang Miao raised his head and looked at the divine dragon in front of him. The creature laughed loudly and said sternly, only an outstanding talent can recognize current trends. Your mother and I were from the same dragon nest, transformed from the essence of the dragon vein. We were twin dragons. So why was she Surging River Dragon King and I only a Well Dragon King? The celestial heavens promised me more benefits, so I had to grab the chance. My sister was my proof of allegiance. However, so what even if I tell you? What can you do to me? He looked ruthlessly at Qin Mu and sneered, that big senior brother of yours had abilities that surpass yours 10,000 times and wasn't he still unable to kill me? He used all he knew and yet he could only trap me here. Behind Qin Mu, a gate of heaven influence appeared and opened wide. In this world, there's nothing I can't kill. Big senior brother might not be able to kill you, but it's not a problem for me, he said indifferently. The divine dragon looked at the gate of heaven influence with a look of suspicion. Jiang Miao asked in a low voice, Cult Master, will you really be able to get rid of him? I don't know, Qin Mu said softly. Wide-eyed, Jiang Miao cried out, don't know. I haven't tested if this gate can kill gods or not, I've only killed devil experts of celestial being realm in the past. I was trying to scare him just now, since he has fallen to such a state, yet he still wants to act all high and mighty, so we need to be more ruthless than him no matter what. Qin Mu finished his explanation and apologized to the divine dragon. Senior, if I can't kill you, please don't laugh at me. He was about to execute Gate of Heaven influence when the divine dragon looked like he'd remembered something, and his expression changed drastically. Wait a minute. Qin Mu stopped, and Gate of Heaven influence instantly paused. He said very patiently, "Senior, please speak." The divine dragon stared at this gate of his with a hint of fear in his gaze. He screeched, "I've seen this gate before. What's your relationship with Mingdu Heavenly King? He also has a gate like this." Mingdu Heavenly King also has Gate of Heaven influence? Qin Mu asked with suspicion. I remember seeing a person open Gate of Heaven influence in Ghost Valley. Could he have been the Mingdu Heavenly King you're talking about? You're a descendant of Mingdu Heavenly King? No wonder you can also open this gate, the divine dragon said in a trembling voice. Qin Mu shook his head and said with a smile, "My surname is Qin, Qin of Carefree Village." Who is this Mingdu Heavenly King? Is his surname Qin as well? The divine dragon seemed to not be listening to him though, having fallen into a deep and terrifying recollection. He muttered to himself, Mingdu Heavenly King controls a gate connected to Yudu. Countless strong enemies died in his hands, and Founding Emperor conferred him the title of Heavenly King, ordering him to open Yudu. Founding Emperor had great ambitions and wanted to annex Yudu as well. He wanted to control the marvel of life and death, but he angered Earth Count. Earth Count wasn't willing to submit, so Founding Emperor ordered Heavenly Works God Race to forge a divine knife. Mingdu Heavenly King sliced off a huge piece of Yudu with it, and Founding Emperor ordered people to construct Fengdu in that land. Qin Mu was stunned. Mingdu Heavenly King sliced off a piece of Yudu and turned it into Fengdu. He was so powerful. By stealing some territory of Yudu, Mingdu Heavenly King had angered Earth Count. However, Mingdu was clever, so he petrified himself and his primordial spirit escaped into Fengdu. Back then, the gods and devils that had died under his gate were uncountable, for which he was conferred to be the Heavenly King in charge of the souls. This gate of yours, it's impossible for it to be the same as his. Qin Mu's eyes lit up and he hurriedly asked, Senior, I've seen a stone statue in Ghost Valley with a gate that connects to Yudu behind it, however, it sealed up gods and devils with a beehive seal. Could that person have been Mingdu Heavenly King? The divine dragon was in a daze while muttering to himself. Your gate cannot be the same as his. You don't have the ability to hurt me. You're just a country bumpkin that's as weak as a hen dragon. Qin Mu's face flushed, and he said, Senior, you're insulting all humans like this. I'm pretty sure I've seen this Mingdu Heavenly King before, and according to my guess, he should only be a fake overlord body. He didn't cultivate to my standard at all. The divine dragon came back to his senses and sneered, You call this gate as Gate of Heaven influence? Truly ridiculous. This gate was known as God-slaying mysterious gate during Founding Emperor era, for even the gods from the 9 heavens above and the devil gods from the 9 underworlds below couldn't escape it. Once the door opened and closed, gods and devils would have their souls returned to Yudu, giving it the name God-slaying. You don't even know that, so it's obvious that yours isn't the orthodox one. Come slay me, let me see what abilities you have. Qin Mu spun around, and devil chi from Yudu leaked out from Gate of Heaven influence. It was extremely dense as it spread through the hall. The gate opened up and swept toward the divine dragon. Hold it. Cold sweat rolled down the forehead of the divine dragon as he stared at the gate that was about to consume him. Qin Mu stopped, being very patient. What does Senior want to say? What's your cultivation? The divine dragon asked in a hoarse voice while staring at Gate of Heaven influence. Junior has cultivated to 6 directions realm, but I've also awakened my 7 stars divine treasure. The divine dragon was stunned. 6 direction realm with 7 stars divine treasure awakened? What is this logic? Yet even if we take that you're on 7-star realm, you actually want to kill me like that? Ha 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 ha, you are truly an ignorant hen dragon that's not afraid of a real dragon. He relaxed and said proudly, Let me see how you slay me. Qin Mu continued to execute Gate of Heaven influence, and more of Yudu's devil chi spread out. Suddenly though, the divine dragon shouted out, Hold it! Qin Mu's patience waned, and he couldn't help hurrying. Senior, if you have anything to say, say it all at once. This video will end here.